Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl, Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets, where we give you the strategies, mindsets, and frameworks to building your six, and dare I say it, seven-figure coaching business. I'm your host, of course, the Road Dog, with none other than the man, the myth, the friend of the Dolphins, King Karl. Shoots, welcome to the program.
Yo. Road Dog, you changed your opening shoots. You're getting.
I got to
changing
keep
things.
people on their toes, right? You got to change it every 100 episodes.
Oh, well done, shoots. Well done. Everybody's impressed.
I know. I don't know. This is when I get the random Karl Bryan text. I think we need to redo the podcast shoots because it's that opening is terrible.
We may or may not have done that a couple times, but
What's making you nervous, bud? The seven figures? Come on, you've got some seven-figure coaches under your umbrella, would you not?
shoots. Number one does $30 million a year there, shoots. So there you go.
There you go. That you know what that is?
The mentee has surpassed the mentor in that instance. So there you go, bud.
Wow. Well, you know what that person isn't suffering from? Self-sabotage. But it's interesting because that's how I'm going to start this. Someone asked me, self-sabotage is my thing, and how can I overcome it? And would that not probably be one of the biggest things that you could overcome to actually being successful?
And I may or may not have suffered that at different times. Okay, so sorry, what am I doing? I'm answering somebody saying self-sabotage is a challenge, and
How do you overcome that?
Okay, I can. Okay, so there's a framework. Let's just call it a self-sabotage framework, but it's like it's really it's a 4-step mental pattern, and you're probably going to recognize it, but I'll just very quickly. So somebody self-sabotaging, don't need to meet them to know that here's what they're doing. Number one is, what are they focusing on? Right. So what they do is they zoom in on the bad, on the negative, on the loss. Right. What do they do after that? They go to their identity. They attach their identity to the negativity, to the loss, to the bad outcome, to the person that hung up on them, the client that canceled, etc. Right. And then, by the way, what I dare say, I think this is from last week or the week before, but they use like these I am statements. Right. Whatever you say after I am is of critical importance, and there's a chance that it's not, working. So they go to, I am screwed. I am screw up. I am hopeless. I am not the one that they'll choose, right? I am disorganized. I am a procrastinator. I'm maybe just a frame like I'm not worthy, right? One of the greatest fears of all time for a good portion of the population is I'm not worthy, right? So anyway, so they go to like, I'm not worthy. And then what do? They beat themselves up. So what am I at? I think I'm at 3. So they beat themselves up, and it's like, I'm a loser. Nothing ever works out. You shoot yourself down, right? And how do you do that? Like action wise, that would be procrastination. That would potentially be drugs. Good chance that is alcohol. It's video games for some. It's playing on social media and spending all day there. It's missing appointments. It's showing up late for appointments, right? So that's how it shows up, like in actions. And then what's the result of that? Where do they go? They play small, right? So they shrink their goals. They shrink their dreams. They shrink their expectations of, that they have for themselves, right? So now you say, okay, so now I better parlay that into, okay, what do you do? Right? Like, so focus, you got to focus on the good, right? Like if you had, you know what I mean? If somebody canceled or somebody said no, or you did a bad presentation, like what did you learn? Right? Like, what are you grateful for? What are the opportunities in this failure? How are you stronger now for the experience? Remember, you learn more when you fail times 100 than you do when you succeed. Like, what does Tony Robbins say? When you succeed, you party, and when you fail, you ponder. In translation, there's a lot of money in pondering, right? So, and by the way, if you learn more when you fail, so wouldn't that be a good thing? Wouldn't there be something that you could focus on that would be positive, right? And then again, you go to your identity, you got to make sure that you've got a strong inner belief of who you are, and what you represent, right? Like how do you do that? I said this to a buddy of mine literally earlier today, very close friend, very, very successful guy, going through a bit of a challenging time with a business and home. Won't go into it, but the right thing to do is always what's right. Right. So again, he's like, what do I do with this? You know what I mean? Like, what do I do in this instance? And I'm like, what you do is the right thing to do. And you just own it, and you kind of own yourself. But anyways, you got to be careful. Like, when you have a failure, if you go to beat up your own identity, identity is close to everything, right? Okay, so now you go, what's the next one? You beat yourself up, right? Again, when you're on your deathbed, one of your greatest wishes is that you were more forgiving of yourself, right? Translation, why don't you start now? Forgive yourself. You're on a journey and you're halfway through. Remember, halfway through, you always feel like you're losing, right? Like, good example, you double a penny every day for 30 days, and what happens? You end up with $5 million. That's the good news. What's the bad news? It's incredibly unexciting until you get to day 25, right? Translation, as you're on the up and you're about to have that unbelievable win, like, again, imagine doubling a penny every day for 30 days and ending up with $5 million, right? Like, that's retirement money, right? Well, the problem is you felt like you were losing for the vast majority of the time. And I would dare say that's, you know what I mean? As business coaches kind of going through in the journey, and you got to take some knocks. Like, Road Dog, you've taken your licks. I have certainly taken my licks. The trick is you got to keep going. Remember, you're going to be remembered for what you refuse to give up on. Your clients are going to be remembered for what they refuse to give up on. And the question is, what do you refuse to give up on? Right. Anyway, so then it's, playing small. And I think that's rather self-explanatory, right? Well, no, sorry. It's playing small is self-explanatory if we're talking about the problem, but hang on, playing small, what do you got to do? You've got to create big, audacious goals. Like, if you want to, what's the saying? If you want your present to be better, you need to make your future bigger, right? That's Dan Sullivan pretty much, right? But anyway, so you got to create a big, masterful, killer goal. And by the way, as I'm saying all this, I'm thinking of Tony Robbins. And by the way, some people listen, they love Tony Robbins and they hate Tony Robbins. Like, at the end of the day, the guy has been wildly successful in the game of business coaching. So to think that we should go, not learn from him would be somewhat diabolical, right? So anyway, he's got a framework that's actually it's 3 words, and I use this. I literally, when I do my live events in Cancun and elsewhere, I've always got this sign in the room, and it's normally very close to the stage, and I'll refer to it at different times. But it's focus, meaning do. Okay, focus meaning. So I just gave you like 4 steps of self-sabotage. So let's assume if you wanted to break it down, you could do it in this. It would be either or, it wouldn't be both, right? But it'd be focus, meaning do. So focus, you focus on the bad. The meaning, I'm a loser. What do? You beat yourself up, right? What do you got to do? What is the solution? You got to focus on the positive. You learned a great lesson, and the key to mastery is learning great lessons and then executing on them, right? So again, we've got a net positive there. 2 is the meaning. I'm on my way to being my greatest self, right? And again, if you want to make the present bigger, You got to make the future bigger. You got to live in the future, not live in the past. The most successful people in the world, the science clearly states that successful people live in the future rather than the past. So you got to live, in a big future with a big goal and a big impact. And then what do focus, that's the meaning. And then what are you going to do? You are going to execute on that bigger goal, on that bigger future, on that big audacious goal that you just laid out for yourself. So anywho, shoots, yes, imposter syndrome, or that's not imposter syndrome. It's like, by the way, we could probably go imposter syndrome and do something similar to what we just did, just slightly tweak it. But self-sabotage, it is rampant in the business coaching space. And you just got to look, confidence that if you want to make more money, go to your confidence. I always say, if you got to introduce me to a coach who's got a lack of leads, and I'll introduce you to a coach with a lack of confidence. So in some instances, what you'd say is you got to fake it till you make it. And you just got to walk in that room with a little bit of confidence and just with the attitude that, look, you are going to find a way. You're not going to do your best. You're going to do what it takes. Anyway, Shoots, that's a good question. And that's my answer, bud.
Very nice. With this breaking it down to 3 thing, it has a Zen vibe to it. So that's where I'm going to head next. Let's head into the Zen den with KV.
Yes. Okay. Business owner's long-term goal. I'm going to go somewhere. So I was thinking about something earlier today. In fact, journaled on it, frankly. But business owners' long-term goal is to get wealthy. All right. Why do they want to become wealthy? So that they can become free. That's not going to be news to anybody who's listened to the podcast. We talk about that all the time. If you've got a flywheel of a business owner, freedom is 12 o'clock. That's what they're trying to achieve. That's what they're trying to get to. Right. And by the way, yes, there's nuances to that, like impact, but no doubt we can agree that a framework of them wanting to get wealthy so they can become free would be a very high percentage of them, right? Like, just imagine if you were able to do what you want, when you want, where you want, and with who you want. Imagine that power, the option, it's optionality on steroids. The happiest people in the world have got the most options, right? Like criminals in jail, what do they got? They got no options. They got no freedom, right? So that's the opposite. So the point I'm trying to make, where I'm going, the number one thing you and your client can do to increase their wealth, right? Freedom, optionality, is practice humility, right? Like we used to, keep up with the Joneses, and now we're trying to keep up with the Kardashians. No one is impressed by your massive house, your Series 7 BMW, your new Range Rover, as much as you are, right? Like, and by the way, the need for those fancy things comes from some childhood trauma that I may or may not suffer from. Let's not go there. But the car and the boat, are great until you realize the ticket price is not really the price. It's the price of maintaining them, right? Again, the oil change on the fancy Merc, it's 5x what it should be, replacing that the front tires are different size than the back tires. I could give you all kinds of examples of my own world where I have spent copious amounts of money. I'll just tell you, the boat is a money pit. Just, what you should do? You should just rent a Lambo for a week. And I do believe you should, because I think everybody should drive a Lamborghini for a week. I think it's just unbelievable. It's powerful and it's amazing, and drive the backside out of that thing for a week. Or maybe that's not your thing, by the way. Rent the boat, rent the yacht, then rent the Rolls Royce, whatever it is, your fancy. Do it for a week, give it back, enjoy the hell out of it. And if you had a bang up time, what you should do? You should go do it again next year, assuming that finances can support it, right? But like, that's a better, or again, you want to, if it appreciates, you want to buy it. And if it depreciates, you want to lease it, right? Slightly different frame there, but hopefully you're getting the idea. Humility is just a superpower of somebody who doesn't make copious amounts of money, that wants to end up wealthy, that wants to end up free, and wants to end up with options in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? Anywho, humility. let's just call it, I've often referred to it as superpower, and that's what I believe. So this is something else I was writing, which is, it rhymes with that, but it's like amateurs versus pros, right? I think, and again, I've said this many a times with the studying and then training, right? So studying is reading the book, doing the course. Training is doing it over and over and over and over and over again until it's instinctual, right? Well, amateurs practice until they get it right. And then pros practice until they can't get it wrong, right? What does Bruce Lee say? He said he wasn't fearful of the guy that practiced 10,000 kicks, or I think it's 10,000 kicks. He's fearful of the guy that practiced one kick 10,000 times, right? Again, over and over and over again until it became instinctual. They practiced it until they couldn't get it wrong. So like in business, amateurs want to make it, professionals want to keep it, or business owners want to make it, investors want to keep it, is another way of wording that, right? Amateurs think of what could go right, and professionals are thinking what? They're thinking of what could go wrong, right? So Bill Belichick's coaching the Patriots back in the day. When he designed his plays, he wasn't thinking about, he's like like stoic on steroids. He was going through and thinking of what could go wrong, what could go wrong. If this goes wrong, we do this. If that goes wrong, we do this. And that's why, debatably, he'll go down as certainly one of the greatest NFL coaches of all time. Or actually, no, some people will vehemently disagree with that, I think. But he's going to go down as a great, great NFL coach. I think we can all agree with that one. Yes, he did have our boy Tom Brady, by the way, which must be mentioned, but but that's what he's doing. He's thinking of what could go wrong. He wasn't thinking of what could go right, right? Like, in fact, I literally wrote this in a daily email. Any Yahoo can give you a list of things to do and expand your to-do list, but a real mentor can tell you what not to do, right? So that otherwise stated, want me to use different language for that? Trial and error is an insanely bad business and marketing strategy. It is why? Because it is an insanely expensive undertaking. You want to stop it. You want to find someone who has been there, done that, and has the postcard. So anyways, I don't know. Once again, that ain't said. Needing nothing attracts everything. I think that's one we've said a zillion times in here, and that, create a want less strategy as opposed to a want more strategy is maybe what I was starting there with the humility. Like, not wanting something is the same as actually having it. That's got power. So there you go. Shoots. There's my Zen thought.
I just wanted to circle back, because earlier in the last one you did say breaking things down into three, and I know it's very strategic for you. But speaking of three, like when you break things down into threes, like quite often, it gives me kind of an example of where you use threes, or where coaches could understand, and dummying down of a complicated learning into threes. Like, can you break that down for us a bit more? Like, because I know there's more to it. And I just don't want people to miss the importance of when you use, like, oh, you got to break it down to three. Like, talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's okay. And earlier I gave four, so there you go. Good thing. Maybe I corrected, but okay. So numerology will tell you, like, if you follow numerology, you understand numerology, the mind thinks in threes, right? Like, it's cognitive and psychological roots to it. Just people process things in groups of threes. I think about triad, like what is it? Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. I think that's what it is. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. That sounds right. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, birth, life, death, right? So you'll find that in, very high level, thoughts and understandings. So anyway, we find it easier to think in threes than we do in fours, fives. 7 does have some power. Just again, it's a powerful number. But that said, people will understand 3 far better than they will 7. Again, beginning, middle, and end. I remember my daughter used to do like some little YouTube videos. She's trying to teach her buddies. Yeah, she took up skating pretty good, right? So she creates a YouTube video teaching kids. She can hardly skate herself, and she's teaching people how to skate, right? Like, the apple does not fall far from the tree. Just pure hilarious. But anyway, so she's doing a YouTube video, and of course this would drive her nuts. But before she started, because I didn't want her to lose her audience was kind of the way that I sold it to her, right? But I would say to her, like, what is the beginning? What is the middle? What is the end? Why? Because I don't want her to create a video that just goes on and on. It doesn't really make any sense, right? So I'm like, baby, I want you to have, again, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So she's breaking it down into threes. Um, Maybe like Nike, just do it. That's 3 words. Um, Amazon, what are they? Okay, said this lots, but Jeff Bezos asked himself the question, instead of looking at what's changing in the trends, which there's power in that, but I think there's more power in what he did. And he said, what will never change? And he found low prices, vast selection, and fast delivery at the top of his list. And guess what he did? He went all in on those 3 things, got about a $2.5 trillion market cap. So apparently it worked out pretty well. And he's married himself a very pretty girl and a very expensive wedding. So hats off. And, like focus.com, what do we do? 3 big problems for coaches. You got lead gen, you got conversion, you got fulfillment, right? So what do we do as a company? We go all in on lead gen, all in on conversion, and all in on fulfillment. So in our inner meetings and whatnot, like this types of verbiage comes out all the time. Even when you're doing a presentation, you got to tell them, how does it go? You tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them, right? So again, break up your presentation. Tell them what you're going to tell them, make a list, right? Tell them, that's the content. Tell them what you just told them. Here's what you guys just learned. Here's what I just explained. Here's what I want you to take away from this, right? And then professional sports, National Hockey League, National Football League, tennis, golf. We've gone over this a different time, so I won't bore you with it. But bottom line, almost every professional sport, you will see it is 3 words, and then they bring it back to an acronym. So there you go, Shoots.
Very
That
good. Yeah, it does. But can we just trying to think of how we can use, like, do you have examples like for business leadership, like frameworks? Do you have anything there?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the CEO. Okay, if you're going to be the CEO of a company, there's 3 things that you need. You need a visual scoreboard, you need leverage, you need structure. Okay, so visual scoreboard, you need financial statements, retention numbers and attrition, a calendar of your employees so you can see their activity. Okay, so like a visual scoreboard, something you can see. And remember, you want them, what does Keith Cunningham say? You want them to be reporting out, not you checking in, right? So you don't want to be mom checking in. They need to be reporting out, right? Okay, so that's a visual scoreboard. And then you need leverage. Okay, so you've got leverage, you've got systems, you've got staff, you've got money. So you've got leverage, right? And then 3, structure, super important, often missed. Like you need an org chart. You need workflows. Like at focus.com, we've always been really, really good at the onboarding. Like it's insanely well structured. Just think like check boxes and a clear order of activities that the new client and business coach can follow. And then really importantly, our advisor, because we provided a one-to-one advisor, and then, so they are following the exact same checklist that you are as our client, right? By the way, we're in the process of redoing it. We have hundreds of testimonials, but you know what? Again, found a better way. We're tweaking it. We're kind of, we've done this multiple times in the past. At the end of the day, onboarding it's something we've always been very, very good at, something we take very, very seriously. And we are, frankly, starting again. But the bottom line is that is structure. That is something people can follow. So you need a visual scoreboard, leverage, and structure. In fact, let me tell you, so something straight from my phone, if I were to open it up, got 3 questions founders need to ask themselves. And by the way, the reason is that founders, they just tend to love their baby just a little bit too much. Like they can't see reality. So 3 questions. What don't I see? Okay. Question number 2, where are my assumptions incorrect? You got to be willing and able to second guess yourself. And then the third one, and very powerfully, is like, is there something I need to learn or a skill I need to develop? Right. So again, is what don't I see? Okay. 2 is incorrect assumptions. And this is going to be like a story you're telling yourself that can be very, very dangerous. And then 3 is what do you need to learn and what new skills? And by the way, what does number 3 require? And that is a lot of courage, right? Again, a business owner, you've got as a leader, as the CEO, you've got to be willing to admit that you might not have all of the answers. Like failure in leadership is just a lack of guts. It's a lack of courage from the person in charge. Okay, so failure in leadership is a lack of guts, a lack of courage from the person in charge. And by the way, like, so you go, okay, so I want to demonstrate, having guts, quote unquote, while leading. It's real simple. You got to ask, you got to listen, you got to learn. And by the way, that's 3. I didn't even realize that. You got to ask, you got to listen, you got to learn, right? And you got to ask. And by the way, ask, but you got to ask the right questions. Listen. I think there's people that would agree that people are listening, but they're not really listening to listen. They're listening to respond. They're not really listening, quote unquote, right? So I mean, like, really listen and then learn. There's a great book. Everybody would have heard of it. Most would have read it. Think and Grow Rich. It's not do and grow rich. It is think and grow rich. Remember, business, I've said this a zillion times and I'll continue to. The truth is, very smart people have built the biggest things, right? Jeff Bezos, a nerd, insanely intelligent. Zuckerberg, went to Harvard. They accepted him into Harvard. You don't need to see his high school grades to know that he aced them. Incredibly intelligent individual, right? So business is a sport of intelligence. And I get the whole school of hard knocks and I come from it. But I got to tell you that being intelligent, having critical thinking skills would fall under intelligence. And by the way, there's a little thing called AI. We've got our own product, AI Coach Assist, and there's Grok and there's ChatGPT. AI can make you significantly more intelligent when you learn to use it properly. Don't overuse it. Don't accept it to be gospel at the same time. Very, very powerful. But the bottom line is smart people win. And hard work does matter, but you need to do and work on the right things, right? So think, Road Dog, like priorities over efficiency, right? Like that would be an example. Most people are like, I got to be efficient. I got to be efficient. 80-20 this, 80-20 that. And I would agree with that. The problem is we got to go to your priorities first and making sure you're working on the wrong thing, right? There's no point becoming really efficient at doing the wrong things. That sounds like a bloody waste of time, right? And you asked me for an example from coaches. I'll tell you, this is an easy one. Coaches are totally obsessed with lead generation. The reality is this: you don't need hundreds and hundreds of leads. What do you need? You need a powerful demonstration. You got to create a dynamic. Remember, in traditional sales, they get you to say, to ask questions and then get a yes, a yes, a yes, a yes, a yes, right? Which, by the way, is good training. And I've taught it exactly that way at different times, right? So, and yes is certainly better than a no in that dynamic. But you really want them to say, instead of them saying yes, you want them to say, wow, I've never seen it like that before. Wow, how do the numbers get so big so fast? Is that legitimate? Right. And that, by the way, that's why we created our profit acceleration simulator. Ultimately, it's a demonstration, right? You want to get amazing at the demonstration, whether it's profit acceleration software or profit acceleration simulator or the software or something different. At the end of the day, if I'm going to challenge you on how good you are at selling coaching, I'm going to say, show me your demonstration. And there's a pretty good chance you don't have it. And that's why we do role plays at focus.com like crazy, right? So again, you don't need tons and tons of people to speak to. 20 clients at $2,000 a month is $480,000 a year with like 80% margins. So much easier than most coaches make it out to be. So anyway, you don't need hundreds of leads. You need a powerful demonstration. My question for somebody listening is, do you have that demonstration? And by the way, think studying and then training. Studying is, doing the demonstration, kind of quote unquote practicing the demonstration in terms of getting it right. Training would be doing it over and over and over and again, not until you get it right, but until you can't get it wrong, right? Like I could demonstrate our simulator, You could wake me up from a deep, 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 deep sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, put my computer in front of me, and I could do the presentation falling off a log, right? Um, so anyways, and I just want to, and so leadership, like the ability, look, leadership is the ability, it is the willingness to say, I don't know. Right. So again, I would dare say that's the pinnacle of leadership. And good news is I'm good at that. Because quite frankly, again, I don't fall under the Zuckerberg, Bezos, Steve Jobs, etc. IQ. My dad's got a stupidly IQ, and I do not share it. Anyway, so that's what I would say, Shoots. And I just feel like I should. So at the end of the day, you're asking me about, I don't know. So threes, I don't know. Did I do a good job? There was, a few little, those are some things that I would be thinking about. I'm sure that a couple of them weren't three because I wasn't thinking threes as I was going through. But anyways, and I just want to say this, like defense wins championships. So it kind of comes back to that, priorities. Most business owners, what they want to do is they want to grow, they want to grow, they want to grow. I want to get to 1 million. I want to get to 3 million. I want to do this. I want to do that. Look, and that's good. But I got to tell you, if you go to the Super Bowl, the World Series, etc., what you are going to find is you are going to, they're just defense. The team with the better defense won the championship is what I'm trying to say. So as doing all this and thinking leadership and pushing your team and pushing your company and pushing your clients, there's power in thinking defense, right? And by the way, three, just Michael Jordan, speaking of championships, like Michael Jordan, if you've ever seen, I can't think of his name right now, the coach, right? What he did, he took over from, somebody else. They were having some success. They hadn't won a championship. He took over and he changed their defense. Let's just call it a try. I don't know if they called it a triad. I'm sure they did. But at the end of the day, all their defense was designed in threes. And it made me think of Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky said he took every play when he played hockey and turned it into a 2-on-1. Guess what? Groups of three. So all that to say, though, defense wins championships. So you got to play both sides of it. And my question is your client playing defense as well as offense? Are you playing defense as well as offense? So anyway, Shoots, that's my answer, bud. Three, something to think about. How'd I do?
So I just want to actually circle back on something from the last episode. You mentioned your boy Elon there over at Tesla, and which is real.
I don't think it ends well, Shoots. I'm telling you, man. He is, again, you can do anything. You can't do everything. I think if you look at Elon Musk, he is trying to do everything. That this poor boy, I don't think he's getting a lot of sleep, bud. Sorry, what about him?
Well, no, funny that actually wasn't there something in his autobiography about him like sleeping under his desk in his office, but
hiding from the media. Shits. His brother's got to come in and console him. He's the richest man in the world, and his brother's rubbing his head, going, "It's going to be okay, man." Oh lordy, man. Oh my God.
You keep talking about the autobiography. Why don't you give us your biggest takeaway from that?
Okay, I've read it multiple times, and I got to tell you, I highly, especially somebody here, who's, you know what I mean, had a lot of success, but still, feels a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit beat up, or whatever. It is one of the most fantastic reads of all time. Elon Musk autobiography. Maybe I'll just look Elon Musk. I don't know. Not just from his autobiography, but if you were going to take anything away from him, first of all, his level of thinking, right? He looks for big problems and he solves them, and he makes copious amounts of money as a result of solving big problems, not little problems, not medium-sized problems, but big problems. And also his messaging, like, again, we're going to colonize Mars, that sort of thing. The robo taxis, etc., which he's put out. We'll see how that goes. By the way, that might be the most amazing thing in the world. I think it's going to be unbelievable. I think it's $4.20 to basically get anywhere in the city. But again, we'll see how that goes. But at the end of the day, it's a self-driving car. And yeah, look, it's a robo-taxi, say no more. Like, big problem. Appears to have solved it, and let's see how it goes and how it rolls out. Um, and how does he do that? He goes like it's first principles thinking. Like that's his superpower, right? Like think about shoots the like he's launching rockets into space, right? He didn't like he didn't ask how much does it cost to buy a rocket. He went to first principles and he said, what are the parts that go into a rocket and what are the materials made of? And then he said, okay, now I get a list of the materials. How much do they cost? Taking the answers and asking how much does it cost to build a rocket from the ground up is basically where he started, right? So what do they do? You want to take a big problem, because a big problem, world peace, these types of things, right? And you want to break them down into small parts, right? So take a big problem and break it down to its smallest constituent parts, right? Don't tackle the huge, monstrous entire problem, or you might find that it's not what am I trying to say? Not imposter syndrome, but you know what I mean? Like you just still stay in idle land. You overthink it. You think, and don't do. You'd be significantly better off to do, and be thinking critically as you're going about it. And I would say that this is what Elon Musk is doing, right? Okay, example for a coach, right? If you're not getting clients as a business coach, what are the smaller parts you could break it down to? What about the audience that you're speaking to? Are you going to a local networking function like BNI and then getting surprised when everybody is broke? Okay, I'll just give you I'll give you the secret. Those guys are like hiding from the real work a good percentage of the time, and they are small potato operators that get attracted to that. So you will go to BNI, you are going to find that there are going to be small potato folks, and there might be a few, good ones, and that's great. High five, that's amazing. But if you look at 100 BNI clients, you're going to be looking at one or two, big clients, and the rest are small potatoes, the realtor, the mortgage broker, the insurance guy or gal, etc. So what's the audience that you're speaking to? And then we go like, what is your offer? Do you even have an offer, right? What's your pitch? Do you even have a pitch? What's your positioning? Do you even have positioning? If they go to your website, if they go to your LinkedIn profile, etc. What's the messaging that you're putting in front of them? Because what do you want to do with your messaging? You want to make them curious. When you read me your message, you say your message out loud. Would it make me curious? Would it make them, forget me, would it make them curious? Okay, well then this is one of the parts. This is like Elon Musk building the rocket ship, right? By the way, is it your confidence? Again, you got to fake it until you make it. What do they say? Commission breath stinks. You don't want to have commission breath for very, very obvious reasons. Look, what is commission breath? In a very broken down way. It's a lack of confidence, right? You've got to get that confidence. You got to walk in. You watch Michael Jordan walk onto a basketball court. That's how you want to walk into that room. Chest out, shoulders back, head up, etc. Speak with, you're going to speak with volume or speak quietly. Are you going to speak with pronunciation and pause in between the words? Remember, music is the space in between the notes. It's not the notes. When you're speaking, are you leaving pauses? Are you, making impactful statements? Are you making them curious, etc.? So you know what I mean? You want to break it down. Like, are you demonstrating your value? Do you have a demonstration? Or are you just explaining your value, right? You got to learn to demonstrate. You got to be very careful using your lips and their ears. Doesn't have a lot of power. You got to use what? Picture's worth 1,000 words, right? What do you got to use? You got to use a picture. You got to use their eyes, a demonstration. So again, a powerful demonstration. If you don't have one, look, you got to create one. And again, we created the profit acceleration software for that reason, right? You just imagine just being able to whip open your iPhone, whip open. You whip open an iPhone, Jade? So that you just whip out your iPhone, you whip out your iPad, and demonstrate how you could help them become wildly more profitable using what? Magic tricks and smoke and mirrors? No, by using math, right? Like that's what it's built on math. The entire system is built on math with compounding and marginal utility theories as the foundation. But again, what does your demonstration look like? So, And remember the big problem. So, and again, you got to solve a big problem. Okay, that's Elon Musk. What's the big problem you need to solve as a business coach? The domino that knocks over all the other dominoes is what? It's profit, right? So the big problem business owners need to solve is profitability. They think it's a staffing issue. They think it's a systems problem. They think it's a marketing problem. The truth, and by the way, all of those things go towards profit. But at the end of the day, in order to achieve freedom, wealth, and have optionality, how do you do that? You have that with profit. So profit is the domino that knocks over all the other dominoes. Don't get it. Yes, there's mindset and a whole bunch of Jedi mind tricks, but that's the hack. Anyway, shoots, that's my answer, bud. I don't know. What do you think? Elon Musk, anything on leave it out? Like, I mean, the guy, he looks for big problems and he bloody solves them and he just acts. But actually, shoots, before I throw it back to you, one of the things I would dare say, and I kind of hinted at this, but like, is Elon, what is the goal? I think the goal should be to have an amazing life. And I don't think Elon Musk is having an amazing life, right? And I'm happy to be wrong. I do not know the man. I've never spoken to the man. I would love to speak to him. You know what I mean? But I just don't. I see somebody who is, just crazy busy, but he's also got, you know what I mean? He just might be the personality type and have a disorder where that's just not on the cards for him and he's accepting of it. So it's like somebody with like bad ADD, right? Like at the end of the day, are you going to be good at meditating? There's a pretty good chance not. But remember, that's the person. The person that can't meditate is the person that will get the most out of it. The person that's the most difficult for them to go to the gym every day is the person that will get the most out of the gym. I remember when it was so difficult for me to think about doing a daily email. I was just like, oh my gosh, like it's going to get old quick, right? Guess what? I started and I never stopped. And quite frankly, I do it easy now. Why? Again, it's instinctual. I did it over and over and over and over and over again. And now it's instinctual and I can pump them out pretty damn quick, right? And yes, I write every one of those stupid jokes and again, I steal all kinds of content off of the internet and Facebook all over the place, to be very clear. But again, you know what I mean? I'm writing that bad boy over and over and over again. So, okay, what am I saying? The goal is to have a great life. Like for me, if I didn't do my daily email, which I've never missed a day since I started, I do it Monday to Friday, by the way, like I've never missed a day since I did it, not sending out my daily email. First of all, the people that will be contacting me bitterly disappointed. And I know that because if we don't send it out by 10 o'clock, I got to tell you, we have a laundry list of people asking, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? This is what I use to start my day. So anyways, that you got to have a great life. So me not doing that daily email would be like a hole, right? Like us not doing this podcast would be a hole. So that's why we bloody do it. We're doing this one. You know what I mean? This is after hours, ladies and gentlemen. I'll give you the red hot tip. It is dinner time as we do this. So I wouldn't aspire to become Elon Musk, and you may aspire to be Elon Musk, but you might not. But I'd be a little bit careful to take on the types of projects that he's taking on, because that might lead to a bad life. And then what would you do? You would self-sabotage, which is where we kind of started today's talk. Anyway, shoots. I don't know. How do you? Any thoughts on Elon, our boy?
No, not really. I just it's interesting because I think the one person that could possibly take on too much, it would be Elon, but literally nobody else can. So that's where I'm going to leave that one.
Yeah, it could be. I'm happy to be proven incredibly wrong, but my heavens, right? It's crazy, man. But he's doing it. Hats off. Full respect. A little bit. But,
well, I kind of fear we're up against it here. Why don't you close us out? What's the one thing? I think I missed that last time. The one thing. How dare I? What's the one thing that a coach can take from today's episode, implement into their business, immediately make $1 million? Why don't you go there?
Is that all, Shoots? Is that all? I don't know. Amateurs versus pros might be there, like again, understanding that, what are they like, one's going to try get it right. One of them's going to do it until they get it right, but then the pro is going to do it until they can't get it wrong. Like again, amateurs want to make it, pros want to keep it, investors want to keep it. It's just higher level. The ultimate hack in business is not a strategy. It's not a tactic. It's a level of thinking. Thinking like a pro is not, it's thinking at a higher level, like thinking about keeping it as opposed to making it is like, and then, but by the way, and then after you're keeping it, what do you got to do? You got to multiply it. You got to make it, you got to keep it, and then you got to multiply it. Right. That sounds good. That is not the easiest thing to do. The number of people that I have had on the phone where they sold their business for X, 7-figure check, and they will tell me, and this often leads to tears because I tell them a few things and I'm like, and they're like, oh my gosh, where was that advice 5-10 years ago? Worst mistake I ever made. Right. So they sell their business and then, so they get, they've got a, net $3 million in their bank account. What do they now have to do? They've got to invest it. If they haven't been investing, how do you think the story, if they're not a professional investor and they haven't been investing for the last 20 years, how do you think the story ends? Like, what's the joke? My dad always says this, like a guy with money and a guy with experience go into a boardroom, and the guy with the money leaves with the experience, and the guy with the experience leaves with the money, right? That kind of thing. Often that $3 million net check, it ends pretty poorly because they don't, because now they start, they start asking questions and they get the financial planner and he's got ideas and he's plugging them into this stock, that stock, and everybody's stock and the get rich quick thing. And then they invest in real estate and then they get the squatter and then, then the market tanks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, it's a higher level of thinking. So to make it, you got to make it and you got to keep it. And then ultimately you need to multiply it. And that sounds good as a framework. And by the way, that's 3 conveniently, but multiplying it is not the easiest thing in the world. It shoots, okay, this is going low, but multiple streams of income. Okay, good idea or bad idea? And the answer is it's a horrific idea. On average, take all your eggs, put them in one basket, and then watch the basket like a son of a bloody gun. That's a good way. Well, if you look at the richest people in the world, that's what they did. Actually, except for Elon Musk, right? But that's what Bezos did. That's what Zuckerberg did. That's what Gates did, etc. Right? They took all of their eggs, they put them in a basket, and then they watched that basket. And that basket, by the way, was business. So they take money from business and they put in the real estate to multiply it. Why? Lots of reasons, leverage and taxes, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. Shoot, that's my higher level of thinking. It's critical thinking skills. It's using high level thought as you're going through all these things. And by the way, maybe the highest level, maybe here's the one thing, shoots. So everything I just said, higher level thought, taking something complex and breaking it down into three word, like a framework of 3, very, very powerful. So that's high level thinking, shoots. That's my answer. I'm going to stop there, Mud. How'd I do?
Okay, well, I was just going to ask you one other thing actually real quick, and that is because you mentioned I love that line though, right? Guy with the experience, guy with the money. Like, I love that. Would you agree that the most successful business people, the ones that ultimately make it, are the ones that have failed before?
100%. When you succeed, you party. When you fail, you ponder. I look at my own business journey, right? And obviously I've had some reasonably well documented success that's out there, right? But I have taken some square punches in the nose. And there is no doubt, no pretending, no telling everybody what they want to hear type of thing. But like, I learned so much more from the failures and the mistakes and the punch in the nose than I did the other. Absolutely. And that's not to say you can't take, there are things that take away from success. And yeah, that that might not be the best advice, to just, downcast or just cast aside all things positive, all things successful. That's not what I'm, saying. And I don't think that's what should be said here. But you learn more you learn more when you fail. Absolutely. So yes, like Dan Kennedy, Tony Robbins, his story's littered with all kinds of, mistakes. Dan Kennedy, he talks about going bankrupt, etc. Very, very common, shits. Very, very common.
So then my follow-up to that is, then why is it that people only like to post perfection on the internet?
You stay, it's toxic, bro. It is so bad for mental health. People don't realize doom scrolling, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and whatever. Um, it's crazy. But at the same time, what are you gonna do? Post a bunch of negative stuff? Like, yeah, also, you know what I mean? I don't know. That's you know, but being vulnerable on there, probably not a bad idea. But I will tell you this: when you're selling coaching, if you come across, well, no, I'll say this: the person that comes across as prim, proper, perfect, let's just say, putting, look, all kinds of, virtual signaling, etc. Won't go deep. Everybody understands it. That is the person that will screw you over 10x what, the guy from school at Hard Knocks with the sleeveless shirt. You know what I mean? Like, my gosh, all day long and twice on Sunday. Um, Hey, I was going there, shoots. What did you just say? Hang on, hang on. I was going somewhere. Lost my thought. Uh, what was I answering?
I was talking about, why do people post perfection only?
Yeah, and I was talking doom scrolling. Look, I just say it's bad for bloody your mental health, times a million. Not to mention our teenagers and that sort of thing. My heavens. So yeah, don't do it. I lost my thought, but it's all good. But
All good.
that's it. But that's all I'm going to say. But hang on. When you're closing coaching, this is what I was going. When you're closing coaching, okay, bringing yourself across as too perfect and too polished, etc., not admitting mistakes, having the answer for everything is not a good idea. That will hurt your conversions. They like what? Okay, the best example, pathetic example, but a great example is the show The Bachelor. When somebody gets sent home, what does the gal say, or what does the guy say in the opposite role? They say they just didn't they they just didn't open up quick enough, or something to that effect, right? As in bring a vulnerability didn't happen, right? So vulnerability has tremendous power, tremendous power. When you go to a Tony Robbins event, within the first 15 minutes, he's talking about his horror story and the massive failure that he had, right? And all good speakers do it, and they do it for a reason, to draw you in. And by the way, it's real, but it's important because they're already on stage. They don't need to talk themselves up. They need to do the opposite to bring them equal to the audience, right? So it's incredibly good for conversions, but don't do it for that reason. Do it because it's real. Do it because it's right. And anyway, so that's what I'm going to say about that. Coming across as too perfect is not a good idea.
You know what? Right there, folks. I hope you caught it. You're already on stage. You don't need to bring yourself up, because guess what? If you're doing even small local live events, nine out of 8 people would not want to trade places with you and be up on that stage, right? So you now need to bring yourself down to, and it sounds awful, to their level. It's just more, you need to make them almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, just that common ground, right?
Build rapport. That's number one rule of sales is you got to build rapport. People like themselves, and if you look too successful, too polished, there's a great example, shoots, is when you go to the website and somebody's Dr. XYZ. Okay, immediately because you want them to say, well, if this idiot did it, if I follow the same system, surely I could get the same results, if not better, because this guy's a dog's breakfast, right? A little bit of an exaggeration, right? But if you're a doctor and you got a PhD or you got an MBA, et cetera, like you're Dr. XYZ, that's a break in rapport, because I was like, well, yeah, of course it works for them. They got a bloody PhD. I failed grade 8 math. I could never get a PhD. So you separate yourself and it crushes conversions, crushes them.
There you go, folks. Speaking of the idiots that you listen to, hey, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. If that isn't the best closing transition I've ever had, I don't know what is. Hey, and if you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or just want more information on how to build, grow, and scale your coaching company, visit focus.com and subscribe today. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, of course, please like and subscribe, and also share with a fellow coach. Hey, as we are trying to make our impact on as many coaches in the coaching community as we possibly can. And while you're at it, leave us a review. That is it for another week. We will see you on the next episode. And remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.